Okay, Sadiq, can we put an email of mine, this way whenever they ask me for email, at least I know? Can we make up something? Let's do it, please, before it's done. Do not know. All right. Okay. Me as Martin. Right, you do it on all of them.
One to remember.
Okay. About the
Hello.
long walk. What is stability do, Alejandro?
Okay, I'll be happy to.
Thank you.
Pulling you motors. Isn't it nice?
Bonito sale elevado.
You do it.
Higienico, bastante la...
Come shit will be on the next trip over. Probably its own thing. More light? Yeah. Plenty of light.
Okay, Sadiq, I mean, Bob Magia California. Sì, e hai un 2%. Però is the right one?
No, not yet.
No, not yet. No, anyway.
How many years is it since the time of the
5 years.
That's when you're young. How about when you're old?
5 years. 4 years. They're changing the program. Since I started, they turned it into a 4-year program.
Okay, so what's the curriculum? Our regular class.
Marshall, good to you. Marshall, you told me. Marshall told me he was going to be 3 minutes late. 7 minutes early.
Oh, he is?
I am early. From 6:58, I told you.
Why don't go on the first one?
Okay. We're at Natalie's Lester's house. How was it? How was it?
We didn't have a menu. No tour ready. So that's your father this morning? Oh, okay. Oh, good.
She got to war.
Nice to see you. This is the neighborhood. That's why we did this.
Oh, such a fun girl.
Yeah, good to see you. Pass it on.
Knowing that in advance.
Rabbi Silverstein would sit down, and he would start, this week's Parsha is Kadosh. And this Parsha, who are you? John? John what? I think you're Briss. And it would distract you for like 30 seconds, and go off on that for 20 minutes, and that was the end of the drush. The Torah went on for like 1 second. I don't know.
Ten four, 10-4.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're going to get started with Mincha, which begins on page 214 in the Siddur Lev Shalom. 6:55.
אשרי יושבי ביתך, עוד יללו חסלה, אשרם שככה לא, אשרם שאדוני אלוהיו.
Back, I got back. They waited for you.
תהילת אדוני דבר פיו, יברך ובשר שקדשו לעולם ועד, ואנחנו נברך יד מעתה ועד עולם, הללויה. ובא לציון גואל לשער פשע ויעקב נאום אדוני. אתה הקדוש יושב תהילות ישראל, וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר, קדוש קדוש קדוש, אדוני צבאות מלך הארץ כבודו. ותשאני רוח, ואשמע אחרי קורש גדול, ברוך הוא אדוני ממקומו. וכי קרא אדוני מאתר בית שכינתי, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני צבאות עמנו מסתד לנו יעקב סלע, אדוני צבאות אשר אדם פותח פח, אדוני אשר מלכנו ביום קראנו. ברוך הגבר אשר יפתח באדוני, ואדוני מבטחו, ויתחו באדוני עד כי באדוני צור עולמים, ויבטחו בך ידי שמך, כי לא עזבת דורשך אדוני, אדוני חפץ למען צדקו, יגדיל תורה וידיר. יתגדל ויתגדל שמי רבה, ועמד יברח חיותי, וימליך מלכותי, בחייך נאמך. חי בכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בזמן קריב, אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם עולמי עולמיה, יתברך וישתבח, יפר וידרום וינשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה, ויתהלל שמי קודשה, ברכו, לעילם ינקו ברכתה, ושירתה, תושבחתה, ונחמתה, תמירן בעולמה ואמרו אמן. ואני צלחתי לך אדוני את רצון, אלוהים ברוב חסדך, הנני בימת אישך, ויהי בנצור אהרון, ויאמר משה, קום אדוני ויפוצו אויביך, ינוסו משנאיך מפניך, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים, ברוך שנתן תורה מלא ישראל בקדושתו. גדלו לאדוני איתי, ונרמה שמו יחדיו, לך ונעלו לך.
That would be wonderful. One second. This needs to come up first.
Place.
Should probably be right where it was this morning. I saw them leave. It's probably right at the end.
No, that's not it. This is Kadoshi.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think they. That was probably at the end. The Torah reading for Parshat Emor can be found on page 294.
In the back of the
Slim Shell, more for your following with me. It's Chaim Chumash. It's page 717. Or if you're following along at home from a different Chumash, it's chapter 21 of the book of Vayikra, Leviticus.
Amen. Hakol havu go Eloheinu tenu kavod laTorah. Ya'amod. Eitan. Ben. Eliyahu Hillel. Yehudi. Aliyah Rishona. Baruch Shanatan Torah Le'amo Yisrael B'Kedushato. Habikim Baruch Elechem Chaim Kolchem Hayom.
Baruch Adonai HaBarach. Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'chavanu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayomer Adonai El Moshe Emor LaKohanim B'nei Aaron V'emarta Alehem L'nefesh L'yitama V'yamav Ki im Lisheiro Akarov Elav L'imo Ulaviv L'ibno Uvito Ulachiv V'la'achoto Habatula Krova Elav Asher Lo Hayata La'ish La Yitama Lo Yitama Ba'al V'yamav L'hechalo Lo Yikruchu Korcha B'rosham Ufasikanam Lo Yigalechu Uviv saram lo yisritu saratet kedushim yiyu lelohem v'lo yichalu et shem Elohem ki ani Adonai ki et b'shei Adonai lechem Elohem hem makribim v'hayu kodesh.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah temet b'chayei olam atah b'tocheinu Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Page 718, verse 6.
Baruch Adonai HaBarach. Baruch Adonai HaBarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Isha zona v'chala lo yikachu v'isha grusha me'isha lo yikachu ki kadosh hu le'lohav v'kidashto ki lechem Elohecha u'makriv kadosh yelach ki kadosh ani Adonai v'kadishchem uvatish kohen ki techel liznot et aviha im michalelet va'esh yisarev v'hakohen agadol me'echav asher yutzak arosho Shemen umishcha umilei et yodo. Shemen hamishcha umilei et yodo lilbosh et havgadim et rosho lo yifra uvgada lo yifrom v'al kol nafshot meid lo yavo le'aviv ulimo lo yitama umin hamikdash lo yetzei lo yichalel et mikdash Elohav ki nazir ki Nezer Shemen Hamishka Eloha Alav Ani Adonai.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah temet v'chayei olam natan b'tocheinu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Page 719, verse 13.
Right in place.
Baruch hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Barak Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
והוא אישה בתולך ייקח אלמנה גרושה וכלה זונה את אלה לא ייקח כי אם בתולה בימיו ייקח אישה ולא יחלל זרעו בימיו כי אני אדוני מקדשהו.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet b'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
So I know of at least a couple Al Malei Rachamims that have been requested to be said in honor of your text in the upcoming week. If there are others that haven't yet talked to me about it, I'll make sure that everyone is what?
It's on page 73.
Hamatzeh menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina b'malot kedoshim u'tehorim kezohar harakia mazhirim l'nishmat Yehudit bat Yaakov v'libat Tzivya shalcha le'olama v'gan eden tehei menuchata ana ba'al harachamim hastireha b'seter knafecha le'olamim utzor b'tzor hachayim et nishmata Adonai hu nachalata v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar amen. And Sam. Yes, President Sheldon. She gave many thousands of hours to the Jewish community, including to his show, U.S. Live, to Camp Vermont, was for the Jewry movement. So she felt that the Amish trial was the most important thing.
Malei Rachamim, Shochim Bamromim, Hamatzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, B'malo Kedoshim U'Torim Kezohar Rakia Mazhirim, L'nishmat.
Hannah, Carol, Nachum HaKohen,
Hannah, Perel Bat Nachum HaKohen, the
Brighton.
Brina Shahal Chale Olama Began Eden Tehe Menuchata Ana Barachamim Astira Betzeter Knafecha Leolamim Utzror Bitzror Chaim Et Nishmata Adonai Hu Nachalata L'tanuach v'shalom al mishkava v'nomar Amen. Share a memory of your mom.
My mom was a very determined woman. She put herself through nursing school when she had 3 little kids at home. And she worked as a nurse until she was 78 years old. She was a hospice nurse. And she was very involved in Hadassah. She was on the national board for Hadassah. It was those were her 2 passions, Hadassah and nursing.
Al Malei Rachamim Shochem Bamromim Hamitzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina B'malo Kedoshim Utorim Kizor Arakia Mazhirim L'nishmat Moshe ben Shlomo v'Sara Shehalcha le'olamo V'gan Eden Tenhei Menuchato Ana Barachamim Hasireu B'tzetek Nefecha le'olamim Yitzror Chaim et Nishmato Adonai Hu Nachalato V'anyuach v'shalom al mishkavo V'nomar Amen.
My father's yahrzeit was on the 6th day of Pesach. Some years I remember, Sig Kavadel Male said, before Rosh Chodesh Nisan, but there are other years where it creeps up on me, and this was one of those years, so it's the first opportunity we had to say.
Any memory you want to share of your father? Yeah.
מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, לנשמת נכה בת ינקו ולאה, שהלכה לעולמה בגן עדן תהי מנוחתה, דנה ברחמים אסתרה בשאת כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בתרור חיימית נשמתה, אדוני הוא נחלתה ותנוח בשלום המשכבה ונאמר אמן.
My sister is on Zoom. Go ahead, Deb. Oh, can she be heard or no? Maybe not. Sorry, you can't be heard, sweetie. Okay, so my mommy Nellie was a survivor of Auschwitz and Dachau and the Death March, and had such a will to live. She was incredible. She was a dressmaker and survived because of community, the importance of community, which we're all seeing how important community is today for us, pulling together. She was generous. She would bring tomatoes to everybody in the neighborhood, and they would come with their pots and have chicken soup when they were sick and come to the house. And this is just an amazing time because I think she loved and believed in us so much to be independent, self-sufficient women, and she was there for us and said, hold your head high, immigrants died at 7th grade education and believed in our education. And she died on my sister's birthday, and because of Adadet, my birthday is on the day she died this year, and Yom HaSma'ut. So it is, it's very, and Yom HaZikaron, so it's all very emotional. So, yeah.
אל מלא רחמים שוכן במרומים, אמצעי מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, נשמת לאה, בת נתן ושעינדו שלחה לעולמה, בגן עדן תהיה מנוחתה. אנה בעל הרחמים אסתיריה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן. This week is the 10th anniversary of my mother's passing. Lillian Sager, Leah. I think she'd be very happy in those 10 years to know that her family has grown and there's now 10, will be 10 great-grandchildren this year. But living in Israel and in Los Angeles, and she'd be very happy to know that one of her grandsons today, the Shabbat made Israeli salad that he learned how to make here in school, and because it's a they lived in many worlds, in Canada, and the United States, and in Israel, and it was be very proud of the way the family was grown. I think it did well.
I have two, my mother and my aunt. על מלא רחמים שוכן במרומים, אמצי מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזרים, לנשמת אמי מורתי, חנה ינטה בת משה ובת שבע שהלכה לעולמה, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה. אנה ברחמים אסתירה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה, אדוני נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן. אל מלא רחמים שוכן במרומים, אמצי מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, לנשמת דודתי מרתי, הינדה הדסה בת משה צבי ושרדיה שהלכה לעולמה, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה. אנה ברחמים אסתירה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה, אדוני נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן. Mom, Annette Franz, born in 1928, but was a woman of our generation and not of hers, and she behaved like she'd been born, I don't know, around 1960. Very interesting, very interesting person. My aunt, who was my mother's sister-in-law, my dad's sister, Hilda Sprons, born in 1918. One comment I shared with her daily. When Teddy Kollek was deemed fit for shlichut by the Jewish agency, he was sent back to his hometown of Vienna, and he took my aunt as his secretary. I just graduated from Secretarial College in Vienna. She served as his secretary for 2 years, when, as is still customary, even here in Los Angeles in 2024, Shaliach spends 2 years someplace and then goes somewhere else. And he wanted her to come back to Israel in order to serve as his secretary. And my grandparents made a big stink about this. An 18-year-old girl, and it said it was the beginning of the Arab revolt of 36, 37, and get murdered by a bunch of Arabs, and they wouldn't hear of it, and she deferred to her parents, and had a very different life as a result. She was a wonderful aunt. She never married, never had children, and so I say,
including those on Zoom.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I just want to say a couple words, I guess, for my mom, Nellie Gelberg. And I couldn't hear Lillian also. So Lillian, I want to thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, Lillian. Hi, everybody. Lil, I couldn't hear yours. I heard part of Steve's, but can you hear me okay? So can you share it with me tonight, what you said later? Okay, great. So I just wanted to tell you how much I love my mom. I still love her and miss her. And you couldn't find a more devoted mom. I'm sure that everybody says that here. But she was really devoted to her two daughters, Lillian and I. And she just she was such a good listener too, right, Lil? She was a good listener, and she was always trying to do the best she could to help us out, whatever problem we were facing, as kids and as adults. She'd always try to listen. And if she couldn't figure it out, she'd help you to figure out who could help you. She was the ultimate in helping people to find resources. And also was thinking about, she had a real profound respect for other people. Like I'd say, well, let's call your friend Rose. And she'd say, no, it's dinner hour. Let's wait. Would you like to call your friend Rose? And it was like, or it's too late now when she got in her older years. It's too late. It's after 8. And so I just remember that. And a lot of things that she told me, I still put into practice in my life, and some of my friends think I'm funny with that, but I still don't want to call people like on Saturday nights, in times when they might be doing things with other people. And along with that, she was just a really good person, just a really good person. And she was a great grandmother too, as well as a mother, right, Lil? She was a good grandmother, and she was an amazing seamstress, an amazing gardener. I'm still don't have a seamstress to replace my mom. She was that good. And she's a professional, that she learned her trade in Romania as an apprentice there. And she was a lovely gardener too. And I get to still look at her flowers and admire everything she did. So anyway, I'm grateful. I'm also for being here. If it wasn't for my mother and my dad, we wouldn't have gone to Jewish schools. We wouldn't be going to services. And so I appreciate what she did to help us to feel comfortable in Judaism. And thank you. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
May everyone's memory.
שם אדוני, כי נזכר שמו לבדו, הודו ארץ השמיים, והרם קרן לעמוד, תירא חוקה, ותשמע זרוע, הללויה. דוד יזמור, אדוני זולת, ונכו יאמר, שוב אדוני אלוהיך ישראל, כי לתתום נתתי לכם, תורתי אל תעזבו, עץ חיים היא למלכת, ושאלת אחרי דרכי נועם, בכל נתיבותיה השלום, השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשוב לחדש ימינו כקדם. ויגדל ויקדש שמי רבה, ועמד דברי חירותי, ואמליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון. חיי לכל בית ישראל, ועד עליו זמן קרב, אמן. ושמי רבה מבורך, ולמו מעמיה, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומה וינשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה, ויתעלה שמי לקודשה, בריחו, ולמין כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהותינו לאברהם וליצחק וליעקב ולישרה ולרבקה ולרחל וללאה האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא אל עליון גומר חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות מביא גואל את בני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ופוקד ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחי מתים אתה רב והושיע מוריד אתה מכלכל חיים בחסד נחמקים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר מי כמוך בעל גבורה ותמיד מלך מלך מניב ומחיה מצמיח ישועה ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים וקדש את שמך בעולם שם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום ככתוב על יד אביך וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלך הארץ כבודו ולמתם ברוך יאמרו ברוך ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו ודברי קודשך כתוב לאמור זלוך אדוני לעולם אל ציון לדור ודור הללויה לדור ודור נגיד גודלך לנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו למוש לעולם ועד כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש אתה אחד ושמך אחד ומקמך ישראל גוי אחד בארץ תפארת גדולה ועטרת ישועה יום מלכה קדושה לעמך נתת אברהם יגל יצחק ירנן יעקב ובניו ינוחו בו, מנוחת אהבה ונדבה, מנוחת אמת ואמונה, מנוחת שלום ושלווה והשקט ובטח, מנוחה שמה שאתה רוצה בה. יכירו בניך וידעו, כי מאיתך היא מנוחתם, והמנוחתם יקדישו את שמך. אלוהינו ולאבותינו, וצא במנוחתנו, קדשנו במצוותיך. ותחננו בתורתך, סבנו מטובך, ושמחנו בישועתך, ותאר ליבנו לעבדך באמת, ונכוונו נעדינו בעבר רצון שבת קודשך, ונוחו בה ישראל מקדשי שמך. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת, רוצה אדוני אלוהינו ועמך ישראל ותפילתם והשבת עבודה לדביר ביתך ותהילתם בבת קבל ברצון ותהילת תמיד עבודת ישראל עמך ותחזינה עינינו בשובך ציון ברחמים. ברוך אתה אדוני המחזיר שכינתו לציון, מודים אנחנו לך. הטוב כי לא חרחמך, והרחם כי לא תמו חסדיך, מעולם קיווינו לך, והכולם יתברך, ולעולם שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד, בכל החיים. דוך סלע, והללו את שמך באמת, הישועתנו עזרתנו סלע, ברוך אתה אדוני, הטוב שמך ולך נאה להודות. שלום רב וישלמך אתה, ועל כל ישי תבל תשים לעולם, כי אתה מלך אדון לכל השלום, וטוב בעיניך, לברך בנך ישראל, וכל עת ראשה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני, אברך את עמו ישראל בשלום. יקדל צדקתך צדק לעולם, ותורתך אמת, וצדקתך אלוהים עד מרום אתה אשר עשית גדולות, אלוהים היא כמוך, צדקתך כרואל, משפטך תום רבה, אדם ובהמה תושיע אדוני. יקרא ויקדש שמי רבה, ועמד ברכיב תבן מלכותי וחניכון ומכון וחניכו בית ישראל, בעגלה בזמן קריבים רומן, יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם לא נעלמה יאיר. יברך וישתבח ויפאר ויטומא מן הסייף ודל ויתעלה ויתעל שמי לקודשה, וכולי לה מכל וחטאיו שירתה תשפטה ונחמתה דברן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. תקבל סולטון ועלטון לכל ישראל תדע בהם בתשמעיה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום רבה מן שמעיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו כחלקם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. שיר את השמיים ואת הארץ ומשה ויקרבו. המלכות שלך יהיה לאמת ומלוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני מלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך בארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו Wonders Kaddish. יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה, ועלמא דברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי בכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויברו אמן. יהי ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי בקודשה בריחו, לילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום הרבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום ממרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
So please grab a bite to eat for those who are joining us on Zoom. We're going to give people a few minutes to grab a bite to eat, and then I'll start teaching in probably about 5 minutes. So please help yourself.
Yasher Koach, Steve. Yasher Koach, Rabbi.
Test. Test.
Feel free to take some with you.
Test. Test.
I know people are still grabbing food. For the sake of time, I'm going to get started with teaching because Havdalah is only 45-ish minutes away unless Mashiach comes. So with that in mind, I passed out some source sheets kind of scattered about. I want to take a look at one of the verses in this week's Parsha, and then a couple of different takes in the Talmud that are all based off of one verse, or one verse really, kind of two verses. So for the sake of those on Zoom, I'm going to read all the text, but for those, I would love some audience participation when we actually get to the point of asking questions. So Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the Israelite people and say to them, these are my fixed times, the fixed times of Adonai, which you shall proclaim as sacred occasions." Seems fairly straightforward. Anyone have like any hot takes on this, just looking at the text without reading ahead? What do you make of this?
Yes.
Yes. So that's kind of where we're going. Marshall shared, it's not God who fixes these times, it's the people. Where do you get that from? Asher tikra'u otam, that you shall proclaim them. So the rabbis are going to do something a little bit different, but that's generally what they're going to look at. So there's two stories that I want to dive into that are going to look at those texts. One of them I actually taught, I don't know, sometime around high holidays this past year. I just remember being in that mindset and teaching this, in part because it's related to that. And then the second one is something that I only found for the first time in this sort of a setting as I was preparing this, which is kind of the coda to everything else. So this is a famous story from the Talmud. There was another incident, doesn't matter what the first incident was, in which two witnesses came and said, "We saw the new moon at its anticipated time on the night of the 30th day of the previous month. However, on the following night, the start of the 31st, which is often the determinant of a full month, a 30-day month, it was not seen. And nevertheless, Rabban Gamliel accepted the new moon on the 30th day." So what's going on here, just for some background, is today we live on a very set calendar schedule. It used to be back in the day that there would actually need to be witnesses as to where the moon was in its cycle, and the month would be set based off of witnesses of seeing the new moon, which is actually seeing no moon whatsoever. And they would come to the head of the court, which in this case is Rabban Gamliel, and say, "We saw the new moon, you should start the new month." And because there's a uncertainty as to whether or not it's going to be a 29-day month or a 30-day month, Rabban Gamliel accepts their testimony, despite the fact that it didn't pan out the way that astrologically it should have. Continuing on, Rabbi Dosa ben Horkinas disagreed and said, "They are false witnesses. How can witnesses testify that a woman gave birth and on the next day her belly is between her teeth?" Which is his very interesting way of saying she's still obviously pregnant. If the new moon was already visible at its anticipated time, it couldn't be seen a day later. Rabbi Yehoshua said to him, "I see the logic of your statement. The new moon must be established a day later." Upon hearing that Rabbi Yehoshua had challenged his ruling, Rabban Gamliel sent a message to him. "I decree against you that you must appear before me with your staff and your money on the day on which Yom Kippur occurs according to your calculation. According to my calculation, that day would be the 11th of Tishrei, the day after Yom Kippur." So what he's saying, why would this be important that Rabbi Yehoshua would show up with his staff and his money on the day that he thinks is Yom Kippur, but Rabban Gamliel doesn't? What is Rabban Gamliel essentially asking Rabbi Yehoshua to do? Yes, exactly. To show up on Yom Kippur with things that you're not supposed to have on Yom Kippur. you're not supposed to be carrying around, you're not supposed to be using, right? He's showing up with his wallet and he's carrying stuff outside of an Eruv. This is like, he's basically asking him to desecrate Yom Kippur on the day that he thinks, that Rabbi Yehoshua thinks is Yom Kippur. And Rabban Gamliel has no problem with this because he doesn't think it's Yom Kippur. That's what we have going on here. Yes, there's a inherent power struggle going on here, but don't worry, it's going to be solved. Rabbi Akiva went and found Rabbi Yehoshua distressed that the head of the great Sanhedrin was forcing him to desecrate the day that he maintained was Yom Kippur. In an attempt to console him, Rabbi Akiva said to Rabbi Yehoshua, I can learn from a verse that everything that Rabban Gamliel did in sanctifying the month is done. It is valid, as it is stated, these are the appointed seasons of the Lord, sacred convocations which you shall proclaim in their seasons. This is 2 verses after the verses that we looked at. This language is important that it comes up again and again, and we'll see that in a minute. This verse indicates that whether you have proclaimed them at their proper time or whether you have declared them not at their proper time, I have only these festivals as established by the representatives of the Jewish people. That's the end of one rabbinic interaction between Rabbi Yehoshua and Rabbi Akiva, but he's not done. Rabbi Yehoshua then came to Rabbi Dosa ben Horkinos, who said to him, if we come to debate and question the rulings of the court of Rabban Gamliel, we must debate and question the rulings of every court that has stood from the days of Moses until now. As it is stated, then Moses went up, and Aaron, Nadav, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel. But why were the names of these 70 elders not specified? Rather, this comes to teach that every set of 3 judges that stands as a court over the Jewish people has the same status as the court of Moses. Since it is not revealed who sat on that court, apparently it is enough that they were official judges in the Jewish court. And when Rabbi Yehoshua heard that Rabbi Dosa ben Horkinos maintained that they must submit to Rabban Gamliel's decision, he took his staff and his money in his hand and went to Yavne to Rabban Gamliel on the day on which Yom Kippur occurred according to his own calculations. Upon seeing him, Rabban Gamliel stood up and kissed him on the head. He said to him, come in peace, my teacher and my student. You are my teacher in wisdom, and you are my student as you accepted my statement. So this is story 1. I'm curious initial reactions to this story. What people make of the power struggle, what people make of Rabbi Yehoshua as he's trying to process this. I sense you want to say more. They're all in Israel. Yeah. They're not necessarily in the same town, but they're in the same general geographic area. Think like they're all within the greater Los Angeles area for like that sort of a reference area. Okay, fair enough. What do you make of this idea of the days needing to be set by human beings and not by God? What? We don't have a telephone line to God, so it has to be set by human beings. Yeah, so Steve is referencing another part of the Talmud where there's a story where it appears as though God is actually intervening on behalf of one human being who is in the minority. I believe it's Rabbi Eliezer. He's in the minority, and everyone else is saying, no, this is what we need to do. God is intervening on one person's behalf, and because the majority is voted in a different direction, that's the direction that the Jewish people go in. And what's interesting, though, and I'm going to potentially bring this up later this week, the coda to that story is Rabbi Eliezer then going and killing people with his frustration over it. So even in these moments where it seems like we as humans have the ability to set the calendar, there's still supposed to be some sort of discretion that is done with it, whether it's a decision of setting the calendar, whether it's making a halachic decision. Great. For the sake of time, I'm going to move on to the second story, which is the coda to the story that I think is interesting. The Mishnah taught that Rabbi Akiva went and found him distressed that the head of the great Sanhedrin was forcing him to desecrate the day that he maintained was Yom Kippur. This is, I guess, not a coda, but somewhere in the middle of this story. A dilemma was raised before the sages. Who was distressed? Was Rabbi Akiva distressed, or was Rabbi Yehoshua distressed? So we have read this initial story as it was Rabbi Yehoshua who was distressed, and he came to Rabbi Akiva. But the rabbis are now bringing up this possibility that it could actually have been Rabbi Akiva who was distressed. The Gemara answers, come in here as it was taught in a Baraita. Rabbi Akiva went and found Rabbi Yehoshua in a state of distress. And he said to him, my teacher, for what reason are you distressed? Rabbi Yehoshua said to him, Rabbi Akiva, it is fitting for one to fall sick in bed for 12 months, rather to have this decree issued against him. Rabbi Akiva said to him, my teacher, allow me to say to you before you one matter that you yourself once taught me. He said to him, speak. This is Rabbi Yehoshua saying to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva then says to Rabbi Yehoshua, it states with respect to the festivals, the appointed seasons of the Lord, which you shall proclaim them, O Tam, to be sacred occasions. And it is written, these are the appointed seasons of the Lord, sacred convocations, you shall proclaim them, O Tam, in their seasons. And it is written, these are the appointed seasons of the Lord, you shall proclaim them, O Tam, to be sacred convocations. 3 times the verses use the term them, O Tam, which can also be read as atem in plural, as you, atem in the plural. This comes to teach you are authorized to determine the date of the new month, even if you unwittingly establish the new moon on the wrong day. You, even if you do so intentionally, and you, even if you are misled by false witnesses. After hearing this, Rabbi Yehoshua said to him in these words, Akiva, you have consoled me, you have consoled me. What? Happy ending. Yes, but there's something more that I think was one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this back again with this other reading of it. The first time I taught this, I talked about the power struggle and about how it's important for us to, I talked about it in the mindset of how do we come to some sort of agreement in disagreement. How can we be in disagreement with one another? How can we learn to be in disagreement with one another? And what happens if we're in disagreement and a decision needs to be made? And in this case, the Talmud would be teaching us we need to go with those who are empowered to make the decision, even if we disagree with them. But the second story, I think, adds a nice little lens on top of that, which is that, that with that power also comes the responsibility and the understanding that those people may make mistakes. They may do things that they know are intentionally not necessarily best for some people, or maybe not necessarily intentionally wrong, but they certainly may make mistakes, and they may even be misled. And we need to give them the benefit of the doubt in those moments. It's something I'm thinking about a lot as I enter into the rabbinate. Knowing that I have a long career ahead of me, God willing, that is full of mistakes and full of being told half stories and full of having to make decisions based on the mistakes I've already made and the half stories that I will be told. And it's something that I'm sitting with a lot in the world that we live in, where it's really hard to know, to tell truth from, to tell fact from fiction. Given the fact that there are reputable journalists who will tell differing stories. I think one of the lessons that I really want to take away from this, and I apologize for not opening it up more, and although I do want to hear other people's thoughts before we wrap, one of the things I take away from this, at least, is that people make mistakes. And the Talmud is full of stories that tell us that people make mistakes. And when they make mistakes, whether or not they know after the fact that they've made mistakes and they still have to run with it, or they never find out that they made a mistake, we need to give them the benefit of the doubt in those moments. which can be really difficult because it could lead us to do something that we feel is deeply wrong. In Rabbi Yeshua's case, he has to show up on a day that, by all accounts, according to the Talmud, is Yom Kippur. He's actually right in this, according to the facts. But nonetheless, he sits in a world in which he understands that decisions aren't made by God in this case, they're made by human beings, and human beings are fallible. And we have to sit in that world. I'm curious if other people have thoughts or reflections before we wrap.
Rabbi, can you hear me?
Yeah, so Marshall was sharing about Rabbi Klickfeld and how he, in the role of Marga Atra, is empowered to make decisions where multiple decisions can be the correct decision. He has to approach it from his perspective, from what he knows, and make the decision that's best for the community. Yeah, Deborah?
Thank you. Yeah, I just thought it was so amazing, your drash there. Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to end on, so that everyone can get out of here Havdalah-ish time. I want to end on the note, on a blessing for all of us, that we may all be blessed, that the mistakes we make are as minimal as possible, and that people will be able to see through us as being more than just the mistakes that we make, but the human beings that are behind those mistakes. With that in mind, we're going to bench and then move on to Mariv. Is there someone who ate bread who would be willing to lead us in Birkat Hamazon? Joey, you want to lead us? Great. Birkat Hamazon is in the benchers on page 47, I think, depending on which version of it you have. 42 or 47. Or 87 in the Sidor Lev Shalom.
Et Shivat Zion Hayinu Kecholamim Az Yemale Sechok Pinu Ulshonenu Rina Az Yomeru Vagoim Igdil Adonai La Sotimele Igdil Adonai La Sotimanu Hayinu Samechim Shuva Adonai Et Shavitenu Ka'afikim ba'negev hazorim bedima berina yiktoru halachelechu vacho no se meshech hazara bo yavo verina no se alumotav Tehilat Adonai Yedaber Pi Vivarech Kol Basar Shem Kodesh Le'Olam Va'ed Va'anachnu Nevarech Yah Me'ata V'Ad Olam Hallelujah Hodil Adonai Ki Tov Ki Le'Olam Chasto Mi Emalel Gevurot Adonai Yashmiya Kol Tehilato Chavi Rein Nevarech Yehi Shem Adonai Mevarach Mecha V'Ad Olam Birshut Chavi Rein Rechal Yishachal Nimishelo Baruch Eloheinu Shechal Nimishelo Tuvo Chayinu Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Hazan Et HaOlam Kulo B'Tuvo Bechein Bechesed Uvrachamim Hu Notein Lechem L'Chol Basar Ki Le'Olam Chasdo Uvtuvo Hagadol Tamid L'Chasar Lanu Ve'ayachsar Lanu Mahazon L'Olam Va'ed Bavur Shemo Hagadol Kiwelzan Farnes Lakol Umetiv Lakol Umechin Mahazon L'Chol Beriotav Asher Bara Baruch Atah Adonai Hazan Et HaKol Nodel Chadonai
Which begins on page 264.
Urachum yechaper b'vol yashchit yirbal hashiva below yair kochamato Adonai Hoshia Hamelchani b'yom korenu Baruchu et Adonai Hamivorach Baruch Adonai Hamivorach v'lam va'ed Baruch et Adonai Elohim Melcham. Uma'avir yom maybe Laila umavdil ben yom ben Laila Adonai Tvot Shemo Elchai v'kam tamidim melchin elam va'ed Baruch et Adonai Mari Barabim Avat Elam B'Yisrael Mechav. Ravatecha tasir mimenu le'olamim Baruch atah Adonai Oyevamo Yisrael Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. These two also. Adonai Elohechem Emek Emunachol Zivchol. Malchuto beraton kibilu alehem Moshe Miriam ubnei Israel l'chanu shirab simcha rabav yameru chulam michamo chabaylim Adonai mikamo chanadar bakodesh meratehilot osefele Malchutecha ra'u vanecha b'kayam mifnei Moshe ze'eli anuv yameru Adonai imloch l'lam va'ed b'ne'emar kipada Adonai et Yaakov Galo miad chazak mimenu baruch ata Adonai Ga'al Yisrael Shivin Adonai Elohim L'Shalom V'Amitim Machinich B'Yim Kosein Tzachim. Orteitenu B'Yim L'Chaim L'Shalom Me'atavi Adolam Baruch Ata Adonai Shemer Amo Yisrael La'ad 268 Baruch Adonai Olam Mein V'Amein Baruch Adonai Mitzvah Shkein Shalom. Ki hamalchut shel chahi u'lameyad timach b'chavod ki nanu melech el ata baruch ata Adonai hamelch b'fodo tamid imach aleinu le'olam va'ed v'al kol ma'asav Kati Kaddish 269 into the Amidah Ki gadal v'kadash shemech rabah v'alemadi v'rakiutech v'amlich malchutech v'chayechon v'yamechon v'chay d'chol beit Yisrael v'agalav v'zman kari v'imru amen Yehesh shemech rabah v'varach l'olam l'olam maya V'it barach v'shabach v'it ba'ar v'itruman v'it naseh v'it hadar v'it ale v'it al shemech kudsha berichu le'ela min kol brechata v'shirata tush brechata v'nechamata da'amiram d'alema v'imru amen Adonai Spatai Gadal Vikarash Mehraba, Yalimadi Veraku Tech Viamikmaku Tech, Bechayechon Viamechon of Haidachol Israel, Bagalavis Mankari Vimru, Amen, Yehesh Mehraba Mavarach Lelam Lalamaya, Iparach Vishabach Vipar Vitram Vit, Nase, Vita Darvita Levital Shemeh Kudsha Berichu, Leila Min Kobrikata Vishirata, Bukhatab Nechamata, Amiram Belemavim, Amen. Hino Amarna Alin Maseadina Kuna, Alin Maseadina Kunanehu, if she please her young Tilshidaiton. Yikra any benehu imo anuchi bethrach alati uvacha bedehu, or chami must be very hubishuati, or chami must be very hubishuati. 216, second paragraph. Ve'ata kadosh ushiv til Yisrael v'karzel zev yamar, kadosh 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 anaitzvot machars kevodo. Batisain yirach v'eshmach acharei kol ra'ash gadol, baruch kavod Adonai mimekomo. Adonai imloch l'olam ba'ed, Adonai machutei, kaim l'olam l'olam. Adonai Elhei Avraham. V'yivtichu b'chayoda eish, shemecha kilo azav sador shecha Adonai, Adonai chafit l'manziko, yagdil taravi adir, 280 Kaddish Shalem. Yikadal v'kadash shemech rabah, v'yalimadi v'rakir teh, v'yamich machu teh, v'chayechon v'yamechon v'chayechol b'Yisrael, v'agalav v'zman karivimru, amen, yehei shemech rabah mivarach, le'alam l'alem elemaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'par v'tram v'nasi, v'tadar v'talev v'talal shemech kudsha, v'richu, le'lam min kol brechata v'shirata, v'shbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'elema v'imru, amen. Tigab also to vote to hon the Israel Kodam Avon Divishmaya Vimru, amen. Yehi Shalom Arabamin Shmaya V'chaim, Alin Vakol Israel Vimru, amen. O Seh Shalom Bimrumav, Uyah Seh Shalom, Alin Vakol Israel Vimru, amen.
I'm going to pause. We didn't say a couple of the Shabbarachs that we have been saying, in part because we don't have the combined one. So I'm going to say a Shabbarach for the state of Israel, and then for the IDF, and then also for what we have been saying. Misha Berach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel V'Leah Hu Yivarech Et Medinat Yisrael Reshit Tzmichat Ge'ulatenu Hagen Aleha Be'Brak Chasdecha Ufros Ala Sukat Shlomecha HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yivarech Et Chayalei Tzva Haganah LeYisrael Yishmor V'Yitzor Et Kol HaShvu'im Ribono shel olam yimalei rachamim aleihem v'yotzihem mechoshech v'tzal mavet u'mosrotehem minatek u'minsukotehem yoshiem v'shivim mehera l'chek mishpachotehem. Yiten Adonai et oivenu hakamim aleinu nigafim mifnei chayolenu v'natata shalom ba'aretz v'simchat olam l'chol yoshveha v'nomar Amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless the state of Israel, representing the beginning of the flowering of our redemption. Defend her with your grace and spread over her your shelter of peace. May the Holy One bless the soldiers of the IDF and protect and guard all of the captives. May the Master of the universe have compassion upon them and remove them from darkness and the shadow of death. Break their bonds, deliver them from their distress, and return them quickly to the embrace of their families. May God make it that our enemies who rise against us be struck down before our soldiers. And may you bring peace to the land and everlasting joy to all its inhabitants. And we say, Amen. We'll continue with counting Omer, which can be found on page 63.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al kathirata Omer. Hayom tisha asar yom shehem shnei shavuot b'chamisha yamim la'omer. Anyone Alinu? Alinu Shabeach Adon HaKol. I think you don't have to. Katuv b'toratecha Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol ha'aretz v'yom ha'hu yiyeh Adonai echad u'shmo echad. Wait, what? 19. Is that right? 19? Okay. Kaisha Tomor's Kosh, page 282. Yit Gadal, Veit Kadash Shemech Rabbah. Ve'alemad Yiverak Kirtech Ve'amlich Malchutech. V'chaychon V'yomechon V'chayed Echol Beit Yisrael. V'agala V'zman Kariv V'imru. Amen. Yehi Shemech Rabbah Mevarach Le'alam La'alamel Amaya. V'it Barach V'it Tabach V'it Pa'ar V'it Romam V'it Naseh. V'it Hadar, V'it Aleph, V'it Halal, Shemech Kudsha, Berichu. Ve'ela min kol birchata, v'shirata, tushbechata, v'nechamata, da'amiran ve'alema v'imru. Amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. On page 448. Kol od ba'levav penima nefesh Yehudi homiya ufa'ate Kadima, Ein Letzion Sophia, Od lo avda tikvatenu, ha tikva bachanot alpaim, lihiotam chopshi be'artzenu eretz Zion b'Yerushalayim, lihiotam chopshi be'artzenu eretz Zion b'Yerushalayim.
We'll continue with Havdalah, which is on page 283 if you want to follow along. Can you get the... Yeshuati, Eftach velo echad, Ki ozi vezimrat yad, Adonai vayehi li lishua, Ushafte mayim besason, Mimaynei Yeshua, Adonai Yeshua. Alam Chavir Chatecha Selah, Adonai Tzevaot, Imanu, Nizgal Lanu, Elohei Yaakov Selah, Adonai Tzevaot, Ashrei Adam Boteach Bach, Adonai Hoshia, Hamelech Ya'anenu v'yom koreinu v'yehudim ha'ita ora v'simcha v'sason v'kar ken tiyeh lanu kot Yeshuot esa u'v'shem Adonai ekra. Nine, 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 nine. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim. Nine, 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 nine. Nine, 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei me'orei ha'esh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil ben kodesh lecho ben or lechoshech ben Yisrael le'amin ben yom hashvi l'sheshet yemei hamaseh. Baruch atah Adonai hamavdil ben kodesh lecho. Shavuatov, 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 Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu HaTishbi, Eliyahu, 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 Agiladi, Bimera, Re'amenu, Yavo, Eleinu, Imashiach ben David, Imashiach ben David. Shavua Tov, everyone. Morning Minyan tomorrow is at 8 a.m. If you're planning on coming to the Tekes Ma'avar, just a reminder that you need to RSVP in advance. I don't remember off the top of my head when it starts, but you do need to make sure that you've RSVP'd.